Hi, everybody. It is Tuesday, March 24th, 2020. And this is tomorrow is the last day of the Jewish month of Adar, or however you pronounce it. And the month of Nisan starts at sundown tomorrow night. And I was just hearing that it's quite common in the month of Adar, which is in our winter, but rough times are common during that month. And during the month of Nisan, we have Passover coming. And of course, we have Easter coming. I listened to President Trump. He just finished a town hall and with Fox News Live. And that finished, I think, half an hour ago. And he said that his goal is to have the country open back up by Easter. Of course, the Jews are hoping that it'll actually happen by Passover. Passover begins 2 weeks from tomorrow on April 8th, Wednesday night. April 8th is when it begins. And so that's what they're hoping for. But he said he's hoping things are going to be opened back up to people going back to work. He said, we cannot sustain this. People need to be working or we will have completely destroyed our country. And man, he gets it. He gets more than we realize he gets. And he made a comment the other day about the deep state. I think it was Saturday. He made a comment about the deep state with Dr. Fauci from the CDC standing next to him. And Dr. Fauci had quite a reaction. And I suspect, now this is my opinion, I'll just state it that way, my opinion. But remember, I told you yesterday that on Friday, Family Research Council with Tony Perkins had a prayer call with 700 pastors on it. Mike Pence was invited to that call. Mike Pence told President Trump, and President Trump said, I have to clear my schedule. I have to be on that call. And I was so worried all of last week that it just seemed like Trump, it's like, what happened to our president? We thought he cared about the American people. What is he doing? Is he just sold out? Did they get to him? Is he not in his right mind? Is he under mind control? What is going on with this man? All of a sudden, things were so different, and I was getting really nervous about it. And then Friday, he's on this prayer call, and I noticed on Saturday, wait a minute, he's back to who he is. What's going on here? And to hear him on the call today they did a town hall with Fox and Friends. They were sitting 6 feet apart, their chairs. There was the Fox interviewer, President Trump, Vice President Pence, Dr. Birx, and the Surgeon General, the black dude who works at Walter General, Walter Reed Army Navy Hospital. And he was there in his Navy military uniform. He's still running Walter Reed, but he's also our Surgeon General. And Dr. Birx was a little, not so, when he was saying we're going to open things up in a couple of weeks, she was just like, she was pretty hesitant with her, medical background and so on. But she wasn't contradicting him, and everybody seemed to be pretty much on the same page. Now, with that being said, President Trump is saying that they had everything worked out for this financial package so that everyday people who are struggling financially because of this, losing jobs and so on, this package that was supposed to give money to the people, suddenly he said it was ready to go through, and then suddenly Nancy Pelosi steps in and is changing everything. And I mean, I don't know, you guys, if you realize what was going on, but they were going to completely do away with, change up the Federal Reserve. We know we got a problem with the Federal Reserve, and Kennedy tried to get rid of it, and We're not quite sure where Trump is on that, but we've had some hopes. And Nancy Pelosi has in this bill all kinds of stuff that Trump's complaining about with the Green New Deal, bringing in digital currency, and the digital currency, with the digital currency, all they have to do is shut it off and everything is gone. Your money's gone if it's all digital. And it's just like Steny Hoyer? There was somebody here in Maryland who was saying yesterday that he is trying to, yes, Amanda, you can call me there. I think it was Steny Hoyer. Anyhow, there's somebody here in Maryland who's in the government trying to pressure our Maryland's governor to go to the mail-in paper ballot only, which is what they do in Oregon. Mm-hmm. Well, we know it is a shoo-in for election fraud and voter fraud, and all they have to do is collect them and throw them in the trash. They see, and in Maryland, the people who work at the Board of Elections are all Democrats. When you're counting ballots and at the election precinct, you have to be balanced. A Democrat has to be with a Republican or an independent. So you are checking and balancing one another. But I'll tell you, when they took, yeah.
Do you remember what happened in Florida on the last election with the ballots, the paper ballots?
In 2016 or 18?
This last one with Trump. 16
with Trump. I know
they were bringing truck full after truck full of paper ballots in, and when it was all said and done, they had like 3 times the amount of voters than what was registered.
Right. And remember, in Ohio, there was a janitor, because these schools are the ones that are the precincts where you vote. Mm-hmm. There was a janitor who opened a closet and found the whole closet was stuck with boxes of ballots for Hillary. Mm-hmm. And that was before the election. They had them all done. Well, and then we saw precinct workers in Florida who were putting the Republican ballots through a shredder, and they were showing it on TV.
Oh, you remember Larry even said, Mary Ellen, that when he was here, that he knew of boxes and boxes of ballots for the Clintons with their election here, he said.
Well, what they would do is when the policemen went to collect the ballots at the precinct, they would put the ballots in the box that's supposedly locked in their trunk, sitting right next to the fraudulent box. And when they got to where they're supposed to turn it in, they open their trunk and they take out the fake box and turned it in with all his votes for the Clintons. And he said that happened all the time. And so the big, now whether that, I know the election fraud has to do with the machines. I'm not sure if Larry called that voter fraud or election fraud. I don't know, but it's planned fraud. No,
the machines during 2016, Mary Ellen?
No, I'm talking about, what do you call when the policeman has 2 boxes of ballots in his trunk? One of the real ballots and one of the fraudulent ones. Is that voter fraud or is that election fraud? I'm not sure. I know
that's election fraud.
It is? Okay. Because I know election fraud is when you're tricking the machine.
Yeah. Now the machines in 2016, there was at least 5 videos that were on YouTube that was showing when they went to vote for Trump, it was flipping over and would give them Hillary, and they had to shut those. They had to shut those machines down.
Well, that happened in Pennsylvania, and they would complain about it, and so they would either supposedly fix the machine or put the people on our team. They would put them on a different machine, and the next machine would do it too. And they said So they would put an out of order sign on the machine, and they said, you have got to get somebody in here to fix all of these. And they watched as they walked out the door, all those out of service papers were ripped off so that the next person coming in who wasn't paying attention. But in Maryland, I watched, we vote with a paper ballot, and then you put it in the machine to read it. You get no receipt, you get no proof. Whereas at least when you're pulling the lever, you can see the way the machine has voted for you. Whereas when you would go fill out your paper ballot, put it into the machine to read it, and there was no way to know how it read. And when we were doing the absentee ballots with a Republican and a Democrat or an independent, it was always a Democrat and one of the others because they had so many Democrats here. But we would, when the absentee ballots came in, because they're folded up, we would fill out a new ballot in their name, or with how they voted, and we were watching one another. So one would read the ballot, the other one would fill it out, and you'd be watching over the shoulder of your person sitting next to you to make sure they filled it out correctly. And but then everything was taken downstairs to read through the machines, and there was no proof that they had any Republicans watching over that process. And I asked, how do you, oh no, we're honest, we're doing it right. It's like, give me a break. So that's one reason I want out of here. But where are you going to go that you're not going to deal with that?
In California, what got me was the last time Feinstein won, she got 100% of the vote. Nobody gets 100%. I'm sorry.
Nobody does.
And they wouldn't let anybody challenge that vote.
And same with Romney in Philadelphia in 2012.
Really?
Yeah. Chris just put that up, but I remember them saying that.
Yeah, and there's that documentary of, what is it called? Voxed? Oh, goodness, I can't remember. That does voter, it was a lady that watches the voter fraud, and they had a documentary on it. It was really good. I might have to look it up and see and post it for you, or let you, give you the link for it, after the show this evening, and I'll find it and get a really good copy and send it to you, and then I'm going to post it. Because in fact, I was thinking about doing my show on that this morning, but I end up doing nuclear waste. So, well, maybe I should have. See, you know what, Mary Ellen, the Lord told me to do voter fraud this morning, and I said no. So I looked for something else, and here you're talking voter fraud when I come in. So see, he tried to tell me to get online with you.
Well, I want to get back to something a little biblical that I wanted to share. We're in a time.
Ellen, before you start,
yeah.
If you could find a book on, how hateful these Democrats have been. Is there something in Psalms? I know you know Psalms really well, about the enemy at our door. When the enemy's against us. I know you read something recently about that.
Saturday, I read a lot of the scripture in the 140s.
We're in that time where, what Pelosi has done, and I even had a hairball mess on my page over just dumb, hateful Democrats. And, sometimes it's hard for some of us. And I know with everybody saying that Pelosi's bill was, useless and it was frivolous and everything. I know people got the backlash, and I don't know. Something's just telling me we need that today. But read what you want, and you can read a little bit of both if you want. But I think everybody needs something like that today. I really do. Oh, and did you watch the conference?
Conference? You mean the on Fox with President Trump?
Yeah.
I was just talking about
Easter?
that when you came on. Yeah.
Easter? Did I hear right?
Yes. He's hoping everything's open by Easter, which is the 12th. But Passover, which is necessary for the Jews, and we know he's very pro-Israel. So, I'm sure somebody's going to remind him that Wednesday, the 8th of April, that evening is when Passover starts. So he'll try and have things opened up by then. And what Pence said, being the head of the task force, is, if we keep following the guidelines of social distancing. I mean, these are just common sense. When somebody's sick, you stay home and you're coughing in people's faces. You wash your hands a lot when there's any illness going around. I mean, this is just common sense hygiene instructions. And if you go to coronavirus.gov, you can get that printout. I mean, the president has tweeted it out with a link that you can pick it up and photocopy it. But it's just the common sense. Don't be in somebody's face when you're talking to them. Give yourself a little distance. Now, I know some people really intrude on your space. Chances are they don't see well. And so that, they're just right up front because they're nearsighted and want to be able to see you better. But you back up, you keep some distance between you. Don't cough into the air. Don't sneeze into the air. Use your elbow, and be careful when you're touching any kind of solid surface, because all kinds of bacteria and viruses and germs can last for days on solid surfaces. I was thankful because I dumpster dived for boxes. I'm very thankful to read that, on cardboard, it doesn't last more than 24 hours. So I went dumpster diving with gloves on, left the boxes in my car for about 3 days, and now I'm using them today. I brought them into the garage last night and left them there overnight, and now I'm starting to pack them up. But we have to just use common sense and good hygiene. And I think our president recognizes that this was another opportunity for them to try and get rid of him. Larry told us that they were going to destroy the economy 2 months before the election. Well, with this virus thing, they're trying to take him out with of course it's not going to be an assassination attempt because it's a virus that they're trying to use to take the good people out. They're trying to take the elderly out so that we don't tell the kids the truth about communism and socialism. Folks, wake up to that. We that are older, Larry said 2020 is, and I've heard more other people saying 2020 is the year for the senior citizen. We have got to step up and open our mouths and share the truth, and hope that the kids will listen to us. Because, here we were giving them permission to go off to these schools where they're brainwashed. We grew up in a different society. And so, I've watched my parents and what they, being in their 80s and 90s, couldn't believe things were happening because it's so foreign to them. We're in that transition space where we saw the truth of the greatest generation and what they were raised with, but all the turmoil of the 60s affected some of us, and now we're seeing what the kids who've gone through the public school system and off to college. I've even watched what happened with my kids in the Christian school and the Christian colleges, and I'm going, I can't be surprised about this because the teachers, most of them, were not Christian school or homeschool educated. They were public school educated. So they're just reproducing in my children what they learned. Can't be surprised about that. But, one thing I want to say by way of encouragement, all this stuff is disturbing everybody's sense of peace. And God said, peace, Jesus said, peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world gives. Don't let your hearts be troubled. And and then fear not, for I am with you. Don't be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, and I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And I want to recommend you guys read through the book of Job. Um, some parts of it may feel boring, parts of it may be hard to understand what they're saying, but pay attention, especially to the beginning of the book. And I heard, I think it was Perry Stone, with a message I listened to last week. And I'm not sure when he gave the message, but I found it on YouTube. And in the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God. That's what we're told to fear is God. Fear God. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. He feared God and shunned evil. He had 7 sons, 3 daughters. He owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke, which means a pair, so he had 1,000 oxen, 500 donkeys, and a large number of servants. He was the greatest man among all the people of the East. His sons used to take turns holding feasts in their home, and they would invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. When a period of feasting had run its course, Job would send and have them purified. Early in the morning, he would sacrifice a burnt offering for each of them, thinking, perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. That was his regular custom. So what's he afraid of? He's afraid his children are going to sin. And so he is constantly doing a blood sacrifice, sacrificing a lamb on their behalf to cover their sins. But what does he fear? He fears falling away from a close relationship with God. So one day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth and going back and forth in it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There's no one on earth like him. He's blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." Does Job fear God for nothing? Satan replied. "Haven't you put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You've blessed the work of his hands so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. Stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he'll surely curse you to your face." So what's happening? God gives Satan permission to hurt Job, and we hear about the patience of Job and all he went through. When you're going through trouble, when I'm going through trouble, you think about what Job went through. The Lord said to Satan, "Very well then, everything he has is in your hands, but on the man himself you may not lay a finger." So he lost all 10 of his kids. He lost all his animals. It tells the story about how all this happened. And he refused to curse God.
Mhm.
And Satan comes back in chapter 2. He said, Job said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." And all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. So on another day, the angels came to present themselves before the Lord. This is Job chapter 2. And Satan came with them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth." And the Lord said, "Have you considered my servant Job? There's no one on earth like him. He's blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. And he still maintains his integrity, though you incited me against him to ruin him without any reason." "Skin for skin," Satan replied. "A man will give all he has for his own life, but stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he'll surely curse you to your face." The Lord said, "Very well then, he's in your hands, Satan, but you must spare his life." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the top of his head, and so on. And his wife said, "Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die." He replied, "You're talking like a foolish woman. Shall I accept good from God and not trouble?" In all this, Job did not sin in what he did. But what did we just hear in chapter 1 he was afraid of? He was afraid his kids would turn away from God. And so he was constantly doing a sacrifice It was correct to fear God, but he was afraid his children would not. That fear gave Satan the foothold into his life to torment him.
Mhm.
So we are not to be afraid. It says 365 times in the Bible, don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Fear thou not, however you want to say it, whatever translation you used. Fear allows Satan into your life. Now, I know anger is rooted in fear. And so we're to be angry, but do not sin. The Bible says we're allowed to be angry as long as we don't sin, but we are not to fear. So if you're feeling anger, look first. Where's my finger? Here. Look first at what you're afraid of, and then don't be afraid. So, how do we strengthen our faith so that we won't be afraid? Because the opposite of faith, the opposite of fear is faith. Faith comes by hearing, hearing by the word of God. So if you want to get rid of your fear, get into God's word. And I know there are places in the Bible that are hard to understand what God's doing. I used to hate reading through Leviticus. Every time I'd read through the Bible, I would very often leave it for the last book I would read because I just dreaded how drab it was and how hard it was for me to comprehend everything that was in there with all the rules and regulations and everything. It didn't make sense. Do you know, I keep reading through the Bible and I refuse to skip over Leviticus. It's a tough book to get through. It's the last book that I would recommend you read if you're new in reading the Bible. Numbers can be a little boring too because it's all these numbers and numbers and numbers with the 12 tribes and so many in this tribe and that tribe. Those two books, I find it very hard to read. Ezekiel can sometimes be a little complicated, but you know what I have found? The more often I have gone all the way through the Bible, and what year was, I think it was 2015. 2015, I started January 25th, 2015, and decided I'm going to read through the Bible as fast as I can. I finished May 25th, so 4 months I had read from cover to cover. I understood God more than I ever had my whole life, even though I've been walking with the Lord since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. His being priority in my life has never, there's never been anything but that in my life, ever. But I understood God so much more with having done it that fast because I really saw God at work throughout history. And you can even buy a Bible called the Chronological Bible. I gave it away after reading it because anyhow, now I wish I had it because I would love to do it again. I may have to buy it. But, start in the New Testament with the Gospels. And there's so much there because those are the words of Jesus. Those are the actions of Jesus. And start there and get to know. Paul can be a little deep. Even Peter said that some of the writings of Paul were hard to understand because he just was very philosophical in how he approached life. But anyhow, faith comes by hearing the word of God. So if you want to get rid of fear, read the Bible because that is God's answer for everything. And the more science and archaeology work together, the more they realize how much our Bible says. It talks about the earth rocking and rolling. Well, tsunamis, look at what that is. That's what's happening. The Bible talks in Matthew 24 and Luke 21 that we're going to see earthquakes and the sun's going to be darkened, which happens with the solar eclipses. Stars are going to fall from the sky, which we see with the asteroids that are coming. And we're going through an asteroid belt starting this week, the end of this week, I think. So the Bible says more than people want to recognize. And as they do more and more archaeology, they are beginning to realize it's true. And, the Shroud of Turin, just as an aside, for example, tests have been done on that. There is DNA from one parent only, not two. So they've got Mary's DNA in the shroud, but there is no second DNA, which indicates the virgin birth of Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit having hovered over her to impregnate her with Jesus. So the shroud shows the scars and the bleeding that would have happened with a crucifixion. And because they've been able now, in just a couple of years ago, did the DNA test and realized that there's only one set of chromosomes, not a pair of chromosomes in the DNA that they found in that shroud. It's just something to ponder. I'm not telling you have to believe that it's really the shroud that was around Jesus. But do you guys know why when the disciples and Mary and the ladies went into the tomb, they found the napkin folded up beside the shroud when Jesus left? You know why that was folded? You know that story, Elly?
A long time ago, but
In Bible days, when they would have dinner, the master of the house, if he had to get up from the table for any reason, he would fold his napkin, which told the servant, I'm coming back. Don't take my plate away. I'm not done yet. I'm coming back. When he was done, he would just wad it up and throw it on the plate. But if he folded it and left the table, it meant he was coming back. Jesus folded the napkin that had been around his head as a symbol, I am coming back, which I think is awesome. So,
the shroud, and they keep trying to prove a lot of those artifacts to be wrong. And one of the first things the professor taught me when I took biblical archaeology is there are more people that will be out there to destroy the history of an artifact before you'll find people that believe. And so he said, so even if we get artifacts and it almost proven that it goes to Christ or, biblical days, there will be people that will try to, one, steal it and hide it and then put a phony duplicate in its place, only to disprove that the whole thing is wrong. And if not, they will come along and just try to disprove. And that shroud, it does date back to the time of Christ. And, the thing is faith and believing, like you were talking about. And as long as we have the faith and we feel in our own hearts that it's for real, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, they're now trying to come out and say what was found in there was leather that didn't date back. Well, I went back to my professors, we have too many people coming in to prove it's wrong, so it'll dishearten the Christians.
It's like Shakespeare, the lady that protest too much.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing about it with the Dead Sea Scrolls, when I thought about it and looked at it, was okay, when you looked at it and they first did the DNA on it, it came back as paper, not leather. It came back as a certain type of, I think it was skin they were using. The other thing is it was provable that the pots and the pottery it was in dated back to that time. So my theory for these leather things that only went back a few hundred years was, okay, now who was the dummy that climbed up the mountain to put leather, that wrote all of that? I mean, that's a lot of scripture to write. Who's the dummy that decided to do all that, to climb up, to put it in the pots, to have fake Dead Sea Scrolls? It just never did make any sense. You always got to go back to the first test. And there's always going to be those out there when you're a strong Christian and you have it deep in your heart, you'll always have the devil sending those trolls after you that just want to try to kick to Christ. And it's like, no, ain't going to happen. Ain't
Well,
gonna happen.
in contrast, look at Charles Darwin and the theory of evolution, and they cannot explain ever still the gaps between the different stages that he. And on his deathbed, he said the whole thing was a lie.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't want to have anybody know that he denied his theory as being anything but, it.
Well, look at the giants that has been found, and the Smithsonian knew about the giants, and they went and they took them. And I mean, there is newspaper reports from, oh my gosh, as far back as newspapers have been written, and every once in a while you would see the giants and the bones of the giants and the skulls.
Well,
And
Catalina Island off the coast of California.
Yes.
Elly Marzulli went to Catalina Island. I don't remember why he was
And
there.
there
was a picture of a man standing over a burial ground where they had dug up a 9-foot tall giant, and you could see the contrast. The next time he went back, that picture had been cropped, and the original was no longer there. It had been taken out. They did not want anybody knowing that this had been a giant, and they had completely redone the picture, and there was nothing there. But don't forget, folks, Jesus said, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man. Son of Man is another name for Jesus. What happened in Noah's day? Genesis 6:1, and there were giants in the land. Og of Bashan, when they went into Canaan, King Og had a 9-foot long bed. What's he doing with a 9-foot long bed if he had a 6-foot body? And look, Goliath was 9 feet tall. David took 5 stones because he knew he was inaccurate. He thought
his brothers.
He figured he was going to have to take out Goliath's 4 brothers. And and a lot of this is hybridization. They were hybrids. The fallen angels came and copulated with the women and created these hybrid beings that were very, very large from these very tall angels, and the fallen angels. And so we know they're coming back. They're trying to create hybrids. China has mixed pigs and monkeys. They are mixing human DNA with all kinds of animals to create anything. Satan does not want the human race. Satan is all about to rob, to kill, and destroy. And they want to destroy humanity. God had to destroy the earth under Noah's day because Noah's family was the only pure bloodline left. Everybody else was hybrid in some way. And God couldn't have that. But they have continued to try and crossbreed. You hear stories about people being abducted by aliens, which sounds just, tinfoil hat stuff. But yeah, the giants had 6 fingers. They usually had red hair. They found in Kandahar, Afghanistan, 3 different groups of soldiers went in to take out this giant because the giant kept eating the people in the area. And the soldiers kept dying, and they finally were able to get a big enough group to be able to take this giant out, and they brought it to the States. So I suppose the Smithsonian has that one and hid it too. But I've seen pictures, red hair, man. But can you imagine? It's not just the height, but put proportional girth with that height. If you've got an 8-foot ceiling of your house, picture somebody being that tall. Look at we see 7 feet tall people in basketball sometimes, and just include, think of somebody even bigger, and that's going to be frightening. No wonder it says in the end times people are going to be terrified out of their minds. And with what I listened to a video on Coach Dave Live yesterday morning. He played a video of Anthony Patch in 2014 talking about the fact that they already had the technology to inject you with something that created a third strand on your DNA helix. Helix will no longer be 2 strands, it's 3 strands. And what that third strand does is it changes your DNA and makes you totally mind manipulated and takes away your humanity. You cannot think for yourself anymore. They will tell you what to think. There will be no more feeling. You will be an automaton. Turn us into the Stepford Wife robots.
Yeah. I've seen how tall Comey was. And it's like, oh my goodness, there is one of them giants that we need to be worried about. And that was long before he turned on, before he let Hillary free. He's huge. He's huge with big old long fingers and stuff. He's pretty big. It's the giants. That's the thing that they tried to cover up. And I've never understood. And it was one of my biggest questions I had was, why would the Smithsonian cover up something that's in the Bible, except for the fact to cover the life of Christ and the end times? It's got to be someone, within the government that just don't want us to see these. And, like people did say, Steve Quayle. And, well, hello again, Mary. But, what gets me, Mary Ellen, is we see things in the Bible, and when we see it happening, they first of all tell us we've got the tinfoil hats. And Steve Quayle has really brought out a lot of, we're not tinfoil hats. This is biblical.
The other thing is, it says, as in the days of Lot. But, Lot, Sodom and Gomorrah were not just destroyed because of the homosexuality, which was rampant.
Yes.
The bigger issue for them was their arrogance, their absolute arrogance. And
yes,
God
and immoral. They were so immoral. And
proud of it. And,
yes.
And Proverbs says that pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. God, of the 7 things that God says he hates, pride is number 1, I think.
Yeah. And the thing with Sodom and Gomorrah, so much of some of these big cities, you see, it's almost like, wow, did I just ride into Sodom and Gomorrah? What really opened my eyes is when I took that trip back to California and the city I was raised in, and then going through and talking with people and being around them and the stuff they were wearing. It really did feel like it. It really did. And then going into San Francisco, you looked around at the homeless and the forlorn and the people laying in the streets that just inject themselves. And then you turn around and you're seeing the trannies and then, the prostitutes on the corner. And it was like, this is what the Bible's talking about. This is really it. Oh, and good news. They canceled the tranny libraries. I've been calling all over the country to get these people, stop it.
Wait a minute. They've canceled it while we're doing this
right.
virus.
Most of the libraries on their list, because you can get their schedule of where they're going. And I don't know, because that's where I go to look them up. And then I hit up different libraries in different cities until I see one and I call them. And they're actually thinking about not bringing them back. The libraries that did have them said that after watching them, they're just not sure they want to have them back. So this is good. This is good. But I mean, look around at these cities. San Francisco is a good one. Elly, and New York, even what you see walking up and down the streets. It is turning slowly. And they're just immoral. They're proud. They don't care what they're doing. The anger, and people being narcissistic in their beliefs. It's really We're
Look,
really close.
look where the worst of the coronavirus is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your governor? Now, Maryland has a Republican governor, but he's really no different, much different from a Democrat with this blue state. But, you know, it's the Democrat states, the whole West Coast, although Oregon hasn't been hit too badly yet, which kind of surprises me. Um, New York, New York City, New Jersey, right outside of Manhattan, and it is spreading faster in New York City and New Jersey than anywhere else in the
Mm-hmm.
country. Even though the Mercy ship's on the West Coast, and it's going to be several weeks before the Comfort, before they finish with their refurbishing it and get it up to New York. But Trump made an interesting point today. He said, yeah, we got the echo there. He said that Governor Cuomo in 2015, I think, had the opportunity to buy 15,000 ventilators in case of an emergency when they were on sale, and he refused to do that. And now he's wanting government help. He said, no, these states need to be buying. We will help them access what they need, but the states need to buy them for themselves. And here he was, he's complaining that Trump isn't helping him. He said, no, you don't just depend on the government to take care of you. You have to take care of yourself. And he had the chance to do something when it was on sale. It was cheap. He could have done that, and he didn't.
Mary Ellen, you know the thing I found out? Well, I found out lots this morning. One was what you're talking about with New York City. They had a bunch of new cases, and I finally got a phone call from Sacramento Health Department, because see, I've been looking for the homeless. Me and my brother have been really worried about the homeless, and I had called out there, and they said that unfortunately, lots of cities, including New York, they made a big mistake. When they moved all the homeless off the streets, they put them in a homeless camp together. And now they're coming in groups of 10 or more with this virus now. That they were finding many just laying in their tents. Almost to the point of not even being, couldn't even come out of the stupor they were in. Find them with high fevers. And they said a big increase in these big cities is going to be, well, Sacramento said it, and the lady I talked to said that they're getting the same huge reports in New York, Elly, San Diego, and Chicago, that now the homeless are starting to go in, and it's in big numbers. And so this is something, I forgot about, except for the fact I was looking to find out where they put them. And it's unfortunate they put them all together. And the lady on the phone said we should have separated them. We never thought this would happen. So you're looking at whole camps and homeless shelters that are catching it, and by 10s and 20s and 30s.
But the Border Patrol agents are saying the same thing. They're saying the majority of people crossing the southern border are sick.
Mm-hmm.
And they said our border agents are getting sick. How can we put these people in a camp where they have so much close proximity to other people who are trying to immigrate here? They're spreading things, but they're coming across sick because they want to take advantage of our healthcare system.
Yep.
And they're destroying our healthcare system because they're coming over, so many of them, sick.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I found out, Mary Ellen, I think everybody's going to love this. Now, I mentioned that UAMS here was doing they brought in the chloroquine, and they were testing it on so many patients. It was 240, I believe, on yesterday, and then they were going to do an additional 500 tomorrow. And so I heard on, I think Ingram last night, that Louisiana was doing the same thing. So then I called out to UC Davis Med Center in Sacramento, and yes, they are doing the same study. And they said there is 5 hospitals across the United States that what they're doing is they got this drug, and they said 2 others, okay, that they're doing this trial run on. Well, what I got from Arkansas Health Department was the first, they've done 300 now, and it's good improvements from those that were almost dying from it, going back to the original symptoms that they started with, and those that it came in with light doses are okay. And
Well, look at the
but
guy.
at this point, they have to wait a week because the FDA is still not kind of approved it, and to be out of the test study, it has to run for 7 days. So
But look at
if
the
it
guy.
runs, if it's running for 7 days, they started it, according to the health department, last Monday, which almost frees them up this week. So I think that's why Trump went for Easter. Now, what I'm seeing and what I heard from this lady is, if people just won't freak out on this thing, if we can get all the people that have the virus and get them into a type of hospital quarantine, and those that have the light cases to stay at home, like you said earlier, we could possibly put America back on the streets and have life in approximately 14 days.
Yeah, 2 weeks. That takes us to
And
Easter.
Trump said 3 weeks, Easter. And like you said, Passover. Now, if we're looking 2 weeks, that's even sooner than, that's good. It's good. It means we got a handle on it. And
Yeah,
she even said the death rate is less than 1%. And I've heard that out of Trump and Pence.
he
But
said
this
that
was
today.
the lady here. And she said the death rate, even in Arkansas, she goes, it's way less than 1% for here. And she goes, and we're still growing. She said, so, people don't give up hope. But now we have the medicine, we have the cure, everybody's going to recover, and we just need to get these people with the virus to be very smart. And if they're sick, go get to the hospital and get quarantined.
Not cure, but effective treatment. I mean, look what happened with the guy in Florida. He was expected to be dead in 24 hours, and they gave him this. And there's a Russian doctor in New York who started doing this, and the hydroxychloroquine plus either zinc or the Z-Pack is just having an incredible effect in turning this around. Yeah.
Now, did you hear the warning they had, though? This is crazy. I don't know why people would even think about this one. The chloroquine that you use in your fish tanks is not the right stuff. They're having people eat it, and they're ending up almost on deathbed, sick over this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard that.
That's going to get Mary Ellen. She's going to think on that.
No, I saw that story. It's an elderly couple that did that, and yeah, that was bad news.
So,
but
that's pretty much the news.
Since 2000.
I didn't do much news this morning because it's all on the coronavirus. Yeah. But I was listening to him yesterday, and he was saying the same thing. That if everybody would just listen, and we get the people into the hospitals, we get them on the right treatment, it would be really soon. And then I that's when I got to calling. And even Dan Bongino, his show yesterday was awesome because he talked about it. And he said the same thing. And I really got to thinking about it. And when we've dealt with serious diseases like Ebola, they had to put those bad infected people in quarantine. And everybody else went along and just lived life. We just had to put these people into quarantine. And that, you know, that's really all we need to do. And I believe when he put us on lockdown and told everybody to stay home, that was the best thing he could have ever done. And you know, when people said, "Oh, this is going to go for a year," I was like, you know, all we got to do is quarantine these people.
Well,
We can live.
they said that one of the reasons they think, I think it was Dr. Burke said this today, one of the reasons they think that New York's having such a hard time is that there are Chinese people coming back from spring break or coming back
Yes.
from Christmas vacation, and
Mhm.
people coming back, trickling back from Europe, who are bringing it and continuing to increase it. Yeah. And don't forget, folks, with the bubonic plague back in the Middle Ages, there were the tradition has it that there were thieves that were taking care of the dead and stealing everything off the dead bodies that were falling over in the streets, and they they asked, well, what were you using that was protecting you? It was a combination of clove oil and cinnamon oil, and I think lemon oil, and I maybe rosemary. There's four essential oils that they were using. Now it has to be therapeutic, pure therapeutic grade. And don't forget, the oils you buy in the grocery store or Walmart or Whole Foods, if they have one drop of pure oil in the product, no matter what they've cut it with, they can call it pure oil. So you have to have therapeutic grade. But anyhow, I mean, just don't forget there are things that occur naturally if you can get your hands on them that make a tremendous difference in keeping us healthy. I have noticed there is a formula that Young Living carries called Exodus. Well, they used to have Exodus, and now it's Exodus 2 because there was something they had in the original formula they can't get anymore. But it has a lot. It's called Exodus because it has the ingredients that are listed in the anointing oil in the book of Exodus. I have found that if I start getting a sore throat, if I put one drop on my thumb and press it to the roof of my mouth, within an hour, within 15 minutes, you know, when my tonsils are starting to swell because my body's fighting something, within 15 minutes to half an hour, all the symptoms are gone. So there's something very, you know, I'm not saying it's a cure. I'm not saying it's a cure-all for anything. I'm just telling you my story of what I have noticed that, you know, and with allergy trouble, you know, a lot of times your tonsils get involved because your body's fighting off something, because an allergic reaction is your body fighting off something that your body doesn't agree with. So, you know, I just have found using this formula has just made a tremendous difference. Or if I start getting a stuffy nose, peppermint oil is really strong and it burns, but if I put a drop of peppermint oil right here and inhale it, or eucalyptus, which is menthol, it'll just, yeah, if you do it, but these things have to be done immediately when your symptoms start, because as soon as you allow the symptoms to work in your body for, you know, 12 hours, you're playing catch up. But if you stay ahead of the game, you know, you can, there's a lot you can knock out. I mean, apple cider vinegar in the morning with equal amount of apple cider vinegar and honey with water. Add lemon, add ginger root. Do it morning and evening. It'll help you lose weight. It'll keep you healthy. I still have a hard time handling the idea of drinking vinegar, but you know, I've done it sometimes, and it made a difference. And then there are other times that I just balk. But thank you, Gloria, for your testing information on the chloroquine, and 6-day turnaround with the hydroxychloroquine. And yeah, we can't call it a cure. Trump was clear about that, and Dr. Birx was clear about that today. We don't call it a cure. We call it an effective treatment.
It's a cure. It's God's blessing.
Well, we have,
you know, Mary Ellen, you talk about peppermint. Yeah, it works really well.
Hang on, Elly. we have to be careful of the FDA does not like the use of the word cure for anything.
Oh,
We
I
don't
know.
want them shutting us down because we're using that word.
You talked about peppermint, and I was like, yeah, peppermint works real good like that. Except for I have a different way. You know those little soft peppermint candies? I eat about 10 of them, and I do really good. And it clears up my sinuses. And Mary Ellen's like, no, you ain't. You're
You're
not gonna make a junk
fighting.
food junkie out of me.
No, you're not. You're fighting. You're fighting the beneficial with sugar. So, what's in Canada Dry tonic water, Mary?
Mhm.
What's in it? It says it is in Canada Dry tonic water. What is in Canada Dry tonic water? So I know there's a minute or two delay, so it'll take her a minute to hear the question. Mary, what's in Canada Dry tonic water? So it's the top of the hour. It's time to, Intercessors for America is trying to let me know. I can't take that call. They're just trying to remind me, and I can't. Oh, there must be another call coming up because I usually get a call just before the first. It's too early for the first Friday of every month. They have, quinine maybe. The first Friday of every month, there's a conference call with Intercessors for America. Too bad I couldn't take that call. Well, our hour's up, so text me if you want to know how to donate to Larry so we can keep, help them with this medical bill. Has got to be astronomical since he's been out since January 21st. Cannot imagine what that bill is going to look like. I saw when I visited him, the stack of medical bills on his dining table was that high. And he said, man, there's over $1 million in bills right there. And that was before he got really, really sick. So anyhow, thank you all for being here. And boy, our numbers have really dropped all of a sudden. So anyhow, hang in there. We're just waiting. We're just waiting for Larry to get well enough to come back, and he certainly will as soon as he can. So Mercury and Venus, which direction do we look? I've been seeing a very, very, very bright star in the sky, in the eastern sky at night. Is that Venus? Anybody know?
Isn't there 3 of them that's stacked up right now? I think.
Not the eastern sky, the western sky. Western sky. I don't know. Anyhow,
I had somebody send me a picture of it was 3 stars that was stacked up, and said, and he sends me really weird sayings with stuff when he does this, and it was like, "Can you see the 3 moons?" And that was it. So I don't know what he meant by it, but it was here about 2 days ago. So that's what when you mentioned Mercury and Venus, I'm wondering if that's what he was, sending me the picture of. But it was a beautiful picture of all 3 lit up, but they were all stacked, and I didn't have a clue. So, but see, I post NASA stuff, and I'm thinking maybe he thought I knew more about the planets.
Maybe. So. All right, guys, we're going to end it now. Thank you for being here. God bless you, and we will talk tomorrow afternoon. This was fun. Thanks for being here. Bye.